Yep, and thanks, Karen, for posting that switch. That's definitely the right one. I just don't want to have to deal with it, and I find it annoying. But I'm annoyed
The first
by a
time
lot
it
of things,
pops me
so I
out, I
don't know
go in
much.
and I change that setting, and then I'm
Yeah,
good for there.
no. I'm mad, and now I'm not touching the browser. That's the end of it.
You don't want Julie mad. That's not good.
No, you don't. I'm mad. I'm not using it. Patrick, tell us something you're not mad about. Alrighty, everybody. It's April Fool's Day, and we're going to talk about some hidden gems in Microsoft 365. And maybe that's the joke already. Is there really any hidden gems in Microsoft 365? Well, we're going to find out. All right. So most of the gang is here. No Carrie today. So we don't have much of an agenda because this is just going to be a series of things that we have found either in Microsoft 365 or adjacent to Microsoft 365. And so how do we hear about them? We're going to start there and then just go through a bunch of things that we think are pretty cool and maybe you haven't heard of or have heard of or whatever. So you can maybe see that Mark Cashman had a hand in this slide since we have some Minecraft gemming going on.
Well, I put the Minecraft thing on and then Mark embellished. He added.
Well, he started it.
He bedazzled my image.
If there's an icon involved, I think we can assume that Mark Cashman was involved in that.
Had a hand.
So, yeah, exactly. So essentially what we're talking about is where do you find those little nuggets of coolness about either working with the platform, making it easier to work in the platform, or just how to get something done in the platform. And, you know, in general, put them in the chat if you have any additional ones that we haven't had here, or if you have a gem that we don't share, that would be awesome. If we have enough time, we'll definitely like read them off, have you come off mute, whatever. So things in the message center, asking Copilot maybe, social media, people posting stuff to social media, blog posts for sure. Those two are probably more prevalent. Conference sessions, definitely presenters come up with like, hey, did you know, little tidbits or whatever. Maybe community calls. A lot of the PNP calls that happen have a lot of people sharing tidbits, sharing knowledge. Maybe here at Ask Sympraxis, you might have gotten some gems, or maybe just sharing between, you know, people and when you see people in hallways of conferences, et cetera, et cetera. So
give me your gems.
Yeah, give me all your gems. All right, so let's start out with Mark Anderson. Browser profiles. This is an oldie but a goodie.
It's an oldie but a really important one. The more the world becomes connected, the more likely it is any one of us is going to have access to more than one Microsoft 365 tenant. If you're lucky enough to only have one tenant that you ever touch, I think sooner or later that will become unusual. Some of us, like you can see on mine, that only shows 7 tenants. I think my list is up to about 28 now. Because we're working in multiple tenants, we need many browser profiles. So
have you run out of images that Edge provides you for each?
I have.
You've got a whole set of people who are little buildings, a whole set are little calculators. Those little icons. It would be really nice if we could use the logo of.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Oh yeah. That would be great. But let's not get to whatever. So
I just got a new computer and didn't move, and I'm moving my profiles over as I need them. Yeah. It's so liberating to not have 5,000 of them.
I was just going to say, nothing beats deleting them.
Yeah,
that's liberating. Delete.
So why would you do this? The reason you do this is because if you log into more than one tenant in the same browser profile, just like your normal work profile, every time you go to something, it will log into it may log into the wrong account. So you might, like, I go to the admin center in one tenant and it logs me into the admin center in Sympraxis, which is not helpful to me. If you're somebody who's maybe using your Microsoft account or a third account to access somebody else's tenant, it may log in with your tenant account. So you run into these collisions. So basically, I always say, don't cross the streams. One profile, one tenant, period. And not just one tenant, but also one account. So if you happen to have an admin account and a regular account in a tenant. Those would be two different profiles. Trust me, you will save yourself a lot of headaches. I never log into to the tenant with my profile. And the reason I don't do that is I like those little icons. If you log into the tenant, then that little icon becomes your little face, right? And if you don't have a picture in that tenant, it's just a little gray circle with an outline of a person. So then you can't tell any of your profiles apart. So I like to stay logged out of the tenant in the profile itself, which is just the browser. So there's lots more I could talk about here. There's actually, I was very surprised. I searched a little bit. There's a really good article from Microsoft Profiles and Work Sign in Edge. It works exactly the same way in Chrome, but I don't know why you'd be using Chrome these days. So that's about all I have to say about that. If you want to know more about how I do that and sort of the intricacies of that, feel free to ping me.
Yeah.
Mike
so
Dixon
Mike,
said that.
yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
Go ahead, Julie.
Go. No, I was just going to read that off. Mike said that's where he's putting. When he said you can use the client logo, I'm like, yeah. And so what he's saying is when he does do the sign in, he uses the client's logo as his profile image.
Right.
Sure,
well,
but I would
great,
never do that because you are that
the
logo in the tenant, and I wouldn't.
Right.
I would not. That's not something I personally would feel comfortable doing. So, but it does give you that. So that is a good point. The other thing I want to point out here is this is where, in my opinion, the Edge browser falls down in the multiple profiles things, because it has a setting that by default it tries to open. When you click a link, it tries to open it in the browser profile that thinks it's appropriate and auto switches, and that just gets completely screwed up.
There's a setting that I change every time I create a new profile, and it's very easy to do, and then you don't have that problem. But yes, it does do that. But you have
to do it for every single profile you create. This is where I go, Edge, bye-bye, nice knowing you, see you later, not using you anymore, and I go back to Chrome. So, but, personal choice, I suppose.
I wanted to throw in, Go, Todd. You were trying to say something earlier.
I was just going to say, and just for context, if you remember where we were before profiles came out, it was like we logged in once in the browser and then once in incognito mode. And since all incognito modes share the same space, then it was once in Firefox, and Firefox is protected mode. The browser profiles is such a monumental thing. I was so excited when this came out. It really changed how things work.
I don't use incognito mode for Microsoft 365 almost ever, unless I'm having problems with profiles and I've done something stupid and I've crossed the streams.
I was just going to say quickly, the new browser profile that I absolutely love learning from Mark and everybody about using these better, but some of the clients have now required the virtual environment. So the new browser profile that actually is super useful once you get comfortable with it is the Windows app. You sign in with the official credentials they've given you for their tenant, and the virtual environment just becomes this really nicely bounded area to not confuse anything. It's a little tricky and it's some pros and cons, but anyway, some of those I used to not like it. Now I kind of like it because you can never go wrong once you're in it.
Yep, and thanks, Karen, for posting that switch. That's definitely the right one. I just don't want to have to deal with it, and I find it annoying. But I'm annoyed.
The first time it pops me out, I go
in
and I change that setting, and then I'm good for there.
No. I'm mad, and now I'm not touching the browser. That's the end of it.
You don't want Julie mad. That's not good.
No, you don't. I'm mad. I'm not using it. Patrick, tell us something you're not mad about. Okay, maybe that was too much.
Well, maybe he's still mad about it, but he wants to talk about it anyway.
No, so turning off titles in webparts. So this is something that has rolled out over the last year or so, particularly as the branding and flexible sections and the ability to have a little bit more freedom in how we lay out our pages. One of the options that comes in here, animation I'm not going to talk about because I'm still angry and annoyed about that, but title,
I know.
You can, why does it have to be turned on automatically?
I don't know.
Anyway,
I don't know.
Title is one of those things that in some instances where, particularly if you have like a 3-column layout and you have 3 quick link web parts, you have to have a title for all 3 of them. Now, in some instances, it may work for your spacing to line things up, but in other instances, it just that blank space or having to come up with a title just doesn't make sense. So you now have the ability to show title or not. The beauty of this is that it then shrinks your web part. Here we have a picture of it in grid view. The upper one shows you where the title would be. The bottom one, you can see it's very succinct. This works great for flexible sections because you can add your own title to a section. You don't have to worry about adding something specific for each quick link web part. This also works for events as well as some of the other web parts. So I just thought this is something I just wanted to mention because I think it's a great way to not always have a title, to easier line up things and kind of clean up our pages and not have that added space if we don't have a title. Now, the other thing I did want to call just kind of as an aside here is with call to action in the editorial cards, you can also now select specific items. So like the editorial card has a subhead, a head, a title, a description. You can toggle those on and off as well, so they don't take up as much space as well. So I just thought this was kind of a fun one to mention.
Great one. And here's another adjacent one. And I'm with you, Patrick. This one is one I'm using a lot, and I'm loving it.
So we've all known for a while you've been able to split screens when, you know, on your desktop to look at like 2 Word documents at the same time or things like that. Did you know you can actually do that in your browsers now? So say you're on a site and you want to open another site, but you don't want to open a new tab. If you right click, you can now open link and split view. So you can keep the view you have and open the new tab and look at them side by side. I have used this, I don't know how many times, particularly when I'm trying to recreate a page or, you know, talking to a client, being able to show them 2 things at the same time and how things work. It was one of those things I was flabbergasted. I was like, this is amazing. I shared in the meeting. Julie jumped on board.
Yeah, I just used it yesterday. I had a client that we were decommissioning one document library, but they had moved a bunch of the documents into the other document library already. And I was like, oh my God. So I had to go through one document library to like check to see if they were in the other one already and if they were the same. So that was super helpful. Open them side by side and I could just scroll down and go, yep, that one's there. Oh, nope, not that one. Move to that. You know, very, very, very helpful ability. So awesome sauce. That's a good one. Go.
Is you can change the size. So they don't have to be the same size. You can adjust the width just by clicking between the 2. So if you want one that's a little smaller and one that's a little bigger, you can kind of move them back and forth. So I love this one. I think this is a great one that kind of just appeared by accident. I found it, and that's why I wanted to share it.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
I'll tell you, Patrick, when you brought this one up, because you can make it a button that is then always there for you. Obviously, the hidden gem is within the right click, but I've added it now always to the Edge browser as a button that's just right there next to, you know, all of the other common actions. So
yeah,
I thank you for that.
That's a good tip too.
That's a good tip. Yeah.
I remember the first time, I think it was Patrick or Derek mentioned this. They said, well, you can split your, I'm like, no way. Like, that's impossible. It was just such a useful thing. It just seems so great. Yeah.
Double PowerShell.
Yes.
PowerShell on the left, PowerShell on the right.
No. You know what? I should just put, before we moved on, I want to point out Carol brought up a gem, her favorite gem that Mark brought up a while ago, which is that if you click on your profile image in the upper right, and you can kind of see it on Patrick's split screen here on the left side of his screen, you can see the PC and the circle. If you are trying to get to the gear and the gear icon hasn't loaded yet, and you click on the PC, in this case, heading, that will make all those icons appear pretty much instantaneously. And that is a great tip, especially if you are in the process, you are in the job of configuring and you need that gear to show up pretty quickly. So that's a very good one too. All right, Derek, again,
All
in
right.
sort of similar Edge Chrome. I feel like there's a lot of our world when you're in a SaaS platform where you're like, it's how the browser works, people, that makes our lives good or bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people that has like 50 tabs open all the time. And, the cognitive load on all of that is really, really huge. So for me, being able to group tabs together, and you can do it in both Edge and Chrome, has just been a complete game changer for me. So you can now like right click on a tab in either browser and determine, like, add it to a set of a group, if you will, give the group a name, and then you can open and close that tab as needed. And you can see in the top screenshot, like, I have one for client projects, admin, and learning pathways, right? So like in my admin tab, I've got things like the SharePoint Admin Center, and I've got the app catalog, and all of those admin related things, but I don't need those open all the time. Really, really helps for me to like reduce the cognitive load, reduce the number of tabs that I have open, because it keeps them open and persists. The other thing, and this is really the hidden gem for me, is say I'm building a site for a client or a series of sites for a client, and then I have to go demo that site to a specific business unit. I create a group for that business unit, and then I can create a new window for that client, push the group button, and now all of my tabs for that demo are now open. So think about that from a conference perspective. You're doing a session for a conference, you're doing something for a client. It's just one way to keep everything like nice and neat and organized, and very, very quickly available. So that was like a huge organizational time saver for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I use this one when I'm doing research too. So a lot of times I'll be researching a particular development type thing, and I'll create a group for all the things that I found that I want to like kind of reference, but I've got to put that project aside and go back to something else. So I keep them in groups so that I can sort of pick up where I left off anytime I need to context switch.
And when you close the browser, it keeps them. So you don't, as long as your tabs are still open, they're in the group, it doesn't like automatically, you don't lose them. So that's very cool.
Nice. The chat is flying so fast I can't direct and read. So if somebody wants to pick up something in there and pull it out, Derek, tenant notifications in Teams. Okay, so, but before you say this, it doesn't work all the time, people.
It does not work all the time, but I mean, like a lot of consultants, and I know a lot of this stuff is very consultant forward. When having this at first move from the top right to the bottom left was, I didn't have a not safe for work word for this. It messed with my head a little bit. So, but the one thing that I've realized is that it actually is a starting point for me. So when I come in the morning, I'll see the icon in the bottom left have a bunch of indicators on there. And that's the visual indicator for me that I have to go check. So when you click on it, it'll tell you which tenant and how many messages are there. And you can actually see this is a message. It's an unread chat message from this person in the Microsoft tenant. And so because I'm an MVP, I have access to the Microsoft tenant. I can put that one on the back burner because I don't need to look at that today. That's not a high priority item. However, you can also pin tenants that you're in frequently. So, and give them, sort of like stack them up on each other so that if you need to do a quick, switch of your tenants to go check something because it's urgent, it's actually much simpler and much quicker just to get it in there, get in, get out, get your information. Switching back is harder, but that's not the point. The point is, just having this be that quick productivity saver for me just lets me know. I now go in here and check every morning as I'm checking my email. I check all my Sympraxis stuff, then I get to the bottom of the list and I go, oh, okay, these are the tenants I have to go update.
I'm going to add one big +1 because it's a fantastic feature. And one tiny little tip is if you open one, sometimes they open almost as a entirely another instance of Teams where you get the full chats of the other tenant. Obviously, it highlights the ones, and you can leave that open as a separate window. And if you're, communicating a lot with that customer or whatever today, you have your main one open, you pop the thing open like Derek was just saying, and then you can leave it open and full size it and have your full experience, almost like two fully signed in Teams experiences.
I am not
Just
seeing
be
that.
sure
That
you're
is
in the
great.
right tenant or the
That's
right
right.
teams
What am I
before you
saying?
respond.
That is true.
Yeah,
Especially if
we've
you're
all
spicy.
been bitten by that bug.
I don't
Yeah.
speak from
Sympraxis forward,
experience.
customer to the right.
Poor
All right, I think I got one more, Julie.
Yeah. Where are we? Oh, okay. I'll shut up. Never mind. I had more things to say, but that's fine. Go
All right.
ahead.
So this is an oldie but a goodie. If you're doing development work, SPEditor as a Chrome extension, this is just it saves my butt a lot, lets me really do quick prototyping, as also a lot of quick fixing. You can get quick links to some of the common locations, like your tenant settings, site contents, the recycle bin, all of that. But it also adds a tab in your developer tools so that you can run code from PnP.js or the Graph SDK right there in line. So you can start to interrogate a thing that you're looking at. You can also do things like edit web properties. If you've got something in the web property bag, you could go in there and update it if you need to. So it just gives you a very live, like real-time way to very quickly perform small, quick tasks.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning, and I put it in the chat, that you can't, if this feels scary to you, you cannot run any code in the browser that you couldn't do in the UI. This is all delegated context execution. Yep. So you can't go, just because you have this PnP.js console, you can't go open up the site or a list or something or a library in a site that you don't already have access to. So it is, from that perspective, just an automation. So yeah, I agree with you, Casper. It's an amazing tool and super helpful. And I do support that. We do at Sympraxis support that tool. Buy that man a coffee. All right. Todd, SharePoint Advanced Management.
Yeah, so this is one I've slowly come around to. This is not new. This gem has been out for 2 years now. I think they announced it at the end of 2023. But the SharePoint Advanced Management, that extra license fee, I kind of scoffed at it when it first came out because it didn't seem like it could do anything that I couldn't already do for myself with PowerShell or with other tools and that kind of stuff. But the more I see of it, the more I'm coming around that this is probably worth people's licensing time and all that. Mainly because, as we preach at Sympraxis and everywhere else, SharePoint should scale by sites. And so we're getting a lot of customers who have a lot of sites because they have a lot of projects or management or whatever, and that gets scary for administrators. And so one of the things that SAM, the SharePoint Advanced Management, does is makes it easier to keep your arms around lots and lots of sites. We could do a whole Ask Sympraxis on this thing. It's huge. But one, I want to bring up a couple of things. It helps you manage sprawl, so your content, where it's going. You can do things like have it generate automatic reports about inactive sites, generate reports about what sites don't have owners, things like that. Another great thing that it does is it's got a report on all of the sites that have the everybody except external user turned on anywhere, so you can see where things are really exposed. Again, nothing you can't do with other ways, but this is just right in SharePoint admin. So I think it's really great for large organizations, again, once you've got a lot of sites and a lot of things to keep your arms around. The one thing that really that I've recently seen is that it's got a lot of tools to help you manage Copilot. And so as you start, dipping your toe in the Copilot pool, having some of these tools and having some of these reports is really going to help you use Copilot well and get better results from Copilot. The licensing is tricky. So it's got its own license. So you can go now, if you go into SharePoint admin, on the left rail, there's going to be a link for this. And if you go to it now, if you don't have a license, you can request a free trial. It has its own licensing that you can buy, and I forget how much that is, but it's a monthly thing. Or if anybody in your tenant has a Copilot license, then all of the Copilot specific SAM reports light up for you, even if the SharePoint admin user isn't the one that has the Copilot license. So it's very convoluted, sort of. But the more I poke around in it, the more I really think it's worth your time.
And I have to give a plug to our partner Orchestry here, because if you find yourself using SharePoint Advanced Management and want to get the grown-up version of that, like one that, like SharePoint Advanced Management is really good at giving you reports of things you should go do. Orchestrate gives you actionable, like click a button and do that thing. So got to give them a plug. It's like the next generation of this.
Yeah, 100%.
Much more,
Totally agree
much
with
more
that.
full featured.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, you're really missing it because there are so many tips being shared in the chat and I can't call them all out. So, good reason to join us live, not only because it's just fun, but you should join us live if you can. All right. Moving on. Mark,
Julie.
Go. Moving back.
We did have one from Francis saying, can you use Claude extension to type code in SPEditor?
I don't think so because I don't know how Claude could get the context of the browser pane in that case, but you could certainly ask Claude and copy paste, but I don't think you could do it directly. But that said, PMPJS documentation is in a MSP server, and I can't remember the name of it, but I will put the name of it in the chat later. Context 7, never mind, I remembered. There's a MSP server called Context 7 that has documentation of developer tools, and PMPJS is in there. So if you wanted to know how to write some PMPJS, you could get a code AI that you've added the MSP server Context 7 to help you write that code. All right, Mark Cashman.
All right. This one is as if you went out to the PNP list formatting and you knew what you were doing with Power Automate, and then you threw that all away because you didn't need to do that. This is for the low to almost no code. Let's just say no code. This started actually as a feature of lists in the Automate menu where you could go in and create a quick step. And it's now a new column type. That's the hidden feature part of it. If you go in to add a new column to any list, you can now find quick steps and it'll add it. You kind of have to hunt around how to know how to use it, but eventually you can go in and add multiple buttons or quick steps. And the way you do it is pictured in the upper left. It's like writing a Mad Lib. Give me a column name. Give me an ad lib. Give me an adverb. Okay, quick. And you choose what you want, and then it puts the button there, and it is what it looks like. It's a clickable button on a live list that you make do what it is that you want it to do. It comes with some canned ones, but you can get it to do a lot of interesting things. There's no JSON required, but it is pulling that in certainly and adhering to what it is that you chose. And you can change color and you can change the little icon that appears there. But some of the things that they have by default are draft an email, start a Teams chat, set a value, which is really helpful if you have a common thing where you're like, this project is done. Instead of going in and editing the status to done, you can just have a little button that says we're finished, and then it updates that status. So super easy to program, super easy to use, looks really nice as far as the functionality. And the other tiny little hidden gem that I forgot to put on here is you can actually set a condition that says if a value is already set to done, don't show the button anymore. So the quick step goes away and it just makes it a little bit cleaner. So super friendly, easy to use, and adds, I think, a lot of actionable functionality to your lists. And it is now not too hidden because it's a new column type, but it is one of the lower column types. So you do have to hunt and pick with your axe to find the new column type.
For sure. All right, since we are running out of time, I'm going to move forward. For anybody into coding, I figured I'd share this one. In general, any REST endpoint that's correctly formatted has a metadata, $metadata endpoint. So you can just go into your tenant and put the root host name of your tenant /_API $metadata, and you will get an entire listing of all the REST endpoints that exist for SharePoint, period, all of them. And this is often a way that as PNPJS maintainers, Bo and I reverse engineer, can we do that thing, or find out if there is actually an API that we can use to do a thing. That is, it comes back in XML. It's really hard to read. It's painful at best, but you can search it. You can find what you need. There is someone who created the SharePoint REST Explorer, and that caches that metadata thing regularly and provides a change log, a user interface to search so you can see what's changed recently. You can see the types, of the objects that you need to pass in. So the gets, the posts, all the things. You can see I typed in here hub sites. There's actually an endpoint on web called hub sites data that you can do a get command to, and that will give you all the hub site data, including hub site navigation, for example. So if you've set up the hub site navigation, you can get all the menu endpoints, and then you can modify them with another command. So that's not documented anywhere, but those are APIs that are available in the SharePoint REST endpoint. And so this is a way that if you can't find documentation on it, or even if it's not in PnP.js, because there's a lot of them, we haven't, we don't go spelunking through this all the time and pull out any new gems that they put in, but the SharePoint team puts a lot of their stuff in here, and so it gets surfaced. So way to go get that if you want to reverse engineer. And we are really running out of time.
This is
Mark
the 30
had an
second
awesome life gem. Go for it.
This is the 30-second life gem, not just to burn any time, but the Fantastical app is truly fantastical. It is the best calendar app that I've ever used. I'm not necessarily your calendar expert, but I have calendars in Hotmail, Gmail, Work, a couple of tenants, and one that was just a weird one that Apple created a long time ago. And it brings them all together across all OSs, across all screens. In fact, I have that the Ask Sympraxis session just ended because it just disappeared from my Fantastical Apple Watch face. By far, though, super easy to program, maybe takes a second to get used to, but then when you sign in anywhere on anything, you have this beautiful calendar experience with great widgets, great experience, and everything's in sync. So super valuable.
Nice. Awesome. All right. A few resources from the slides that we shared already, but since we're running late, I'm going to pop on April 15th. Microsoft 365 automation options is what we're going to do next. And we've said it a bunch of times, but if you're here for the first time, let you in on where we're going to find us. We're going to be at the Microsoft 365 Community Conference in Force. We have a discount code if you'd like to join us there. Then at the European Collaboration Summit, that's in Cologne, Germany, we've got a discount code for that one too. Todd will be at Techorama in about that same time. And then we will be at TechCon 365 in Chicago, which is in June. So bunch of us all over the place. Definitely say hi if you're at one of these events, or if you want to attend the event, use one of our discount codes. Alrighty then, everybody. Great seeing you. We'll see you again on April 15th. Thank you so much for joining us this week on Ask Sympraxis. We love getting your questions or session ideas. You can submit by using the link in About. If you find this helpful, hit that like or subscribe button and share this content with your colleagues.